What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Another fun video for you guys here. This one we're going to look at a mono-white Pegasus tribal deck. That's right, Pegasus. Alright, so leading things off, we're going to run 4 Healer's Hawk. It does have a nice little bit of synergy, gives us an early drop, even though it's not a Pegasus, but it's still in the flying theme. And also the lifelink can be quite beneficial, and there's some synergy that you'll see here in a little bit. Also, we got 4 of the Loyal Pegasus. That's our first Pegasi. It's a 2/1 for 1, so that's a pretty powerful statted creature. But the downside is that it cannot attack or block alone. And that's why we're running the Healer's Hawk, so it gives us a 1-drop that can start attacking the following turn. And because a lot of these creatures are sort of understated, we're going to run Sentinel's Eyes. So at least get +1/+1, and it does have escape, so we can just keep bringing it back again and again. So in case our opponent is heavy on removal, we still have ways to power through. In the 2-drop slot, we have 4 Concordia Pegasus. Again, it's an understated creature, but it does have flying, so 1/3. Another reason to play the Sentinel's Eyes. Running 3 Daxos. It's a 2x, where X is your devotion to white. But then the life gain synergy is that whenever another creature you control enters the battlefield or dies, we gain a life. Running 3 Birth of Meletis. We can search for a basic plains. The turn it comes into play. The following turn we get a 0/4 defender. And the following turn after that we gain 2 life. So it's a nice way to ramp into to make sure that we curve out into our 3 and 4 drops. And also creates a blocker against other aggro decks, so we can keep attacking in the air. And also gain a little bit of life against those aggressive decks, mono red, things like that. Also in the 3 drops, moving on to the 3-drop slot, we have 3 Banishing Light. That's just our utility removal spell. And we're also going to be running 2 Heliods. It is legendary, so that's why we're just going to run 2 of them. But having a 3-drop that's 5/5 indestructible. Now, it's not a creature unless our devotion is 5 or more. So we do have Daxos with double white here. And then several 1-drops, 2-drops that can help us get to that magic 5 devotion. And a couple other spells here. Also in the 3 and 4-drop slots that will help us get to our devotion. We can pay 2 to give another creature lifelink until end of turn. And whenever we gain life, we get to put a +1 counter on it. Creature or enchantment we control. So it's kind of another way to buff up our understated Pegasi creatures and finish off our opponent with more damage later on. Finishing out a 3-drop slot, we have 4 Trusted Pegasus. It's a 3-mana 2/2 flying. And whenever it attacks, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until end of turn. So not really relevant except for with Daxos or Heliod. So it could be useful in those spots, but otherwise all the rest of our creatures do have flying already. And running up our 4-drop slot, we have the Archon of Sun's Grace. It is not a Pegasus, but it does make Pegasus tokens. It itself is a 3/4 flying lifelinker, and it gives all of our other Pegasus lifelink. But then when we play an enchantment, then we get a 2/2 Pegasus creature token with flying. And so we've got the Birth of Meletis and Banishing Light and the Sentinel's Eyes. So they all synergize quite nicely with that. So we're not all in on that strategy, but we do have ways to enable and add extra creatures to the board just by playing enchantments. And finally, we have 2 Elspeth. Mostly it's in here for the -1 to give our creatures +2/+1 until end of turn. Since we do have flying, we're going to be evasive against a lot of decks, and just being able to push through for an extra 4 damage is going to be quite powerful to finish off our opponent. And against any aggro decks, when we're gaining life, then that's going to make a huge swing in our favor as well. And our mana base, we're going to run 2 Castle Ardenvales, just because it does give us a way to pump out creatures in the late game if we're against removal heavy decks. So we still can have some kind of a presence going. And then just 22 basic planes. Going over the sideboard here, we're going to run 1 Gideon's Triumph. Target opponent sacrifices a creature that attacked or blocked this turn. So just kind of way to deal with like a Dream Trawler or things like a Paradise Druid that's been enchanted and we cannot deal with it otherwise. I'm going to run 3 Hushbringers, so we don't have to deal with things like the Risen Reef, Agent of Treachery style decks. We can just shut those down. 3 Pacifism, since our creatures are pretty small. If we are up against another mid-range deck that has larger creatures, or maybe you want to shut down some flyers so our opponent can't block, we can play Pacifism, which has a nice 2-drop, and Ipping an enchantment counts towards our devotion, so that's some nice energy there. I'm going to run 2 Tomiks. It's another flyer, 2/3, and this is just in here for those Nissa matchups because lands on the battlefield cannot be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control, so that shutdowns Nissa right there. 2 Sorcerous Spyglass, just as a way to help us deal with other planeswalkers or any permanents with activated abilities such as Witch's Oven. Against the control removal heavy matchups, we're running 2 Gideons because it is going to dodge all their sweepers, and then we can just keep attacking for 4 turn after turn. And then Unbreakable Formation as a 2-of. It can be useful against removal heavy matchups to give our creatures indestructible, but he also gives us the upside of putting +1 and +1 counters on all of our creatures, and then them able to attack in with Vigilance and Indestructible until end of turn. So it's really great, especially in the mirror matchup, in terms of like other similar creatures. Alright, so that's our deck, and let's jump into some best of 3 matches. There we go. Alright. Pegasus Tribal, an Arena Standard best of 3. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day wherever you're at. So this whole idea started from, well, first off, I like to try out different like tribal decks, especially ones that other people aren't really playing around with. I've not seen or heard anybody that's messing around with Pegasus, and it seems like there's just enough to make it work. So that's kind of where I got the inspiration from. Alright, here we are up against our first opponent, Zitternia. Okay, 3 lands, and got a 1-drop, 2-drop, and a couple powerful 4-drops, so yeah. Let's do it. Sacred Foundry, tapped. Yep. Birth of Meletis, wasn't sure that we curve up. Well, we draw a land anyway. Let's go and attack first, see what our opponent does. Nope, no shocks or anything. Let's go and play our Meletis down, thin the deck a little bit, and hopefully we can improve our future draws. Okay, still no plays from our opponent. A little bit of hesitation, so I wonder if they're holding up some kind of instant speed effect here. Oops, Bone Crusher guy, sure. Play it down as a 4/3. It's fine with me. I think we'll just get our Archon online, and then we can follow it up with Sentinel's Eyes or Banishing Light. And/or Banishing Light next turn, or we can just Elspeth. I think Elspeth will be better once we get a couple more creatures on board. If they want to attack in, we got plenty of life gain, so yeah, just take it. See what our opponent follows up with. Nothing. Okay. We'll start with Sentinel's Eyes and see what kind of response that elicits. Nothing. I think we might be worth holding on to the Banishing Light, but I think we'll just play it out just to get some more creatures on board. Obviously, we're going to take 2 from targeting it. Oh, I guess that gets around because the Banishing Light didn't technically target our opponent saying, oops, not really sure what that was about. Jeskai. Okay. Have a Storm's Wrath or Deafening Clarion, maybe? Everybody's favorite.
You'll thank me later. Might be a bad idea.
Okay, well, we don't really lose anything. Well, we can definitely finish off Teferi and hit for 4. That seems pretty reasonable. Okay, let's go face with our 2/2s. Send the Healer's Hawk to finish off Teferi. Exactly 2 cards to escape with. Let's put out a Storm's Wrath range. And then we have Elspeth, so we can come down next turn. And we'll hold on to the second Archon. Looks like some kind of a Jeskai fires. It just got off to a kind of awkward start. Deafening Clarion. And Bone Crusher Giant? No, Justice. Okay. Okay, again we have exactly 2 creatures, or 2 cards to escape with. Let's try to keep our Archon out of harm's way as much as possible. And we'll just hold on to this Elspeth for a knockout blow.
Escape my shadow. I will do my best.
Our opponent can gain life, but so will we. So just crash in. Go and play out the Healer's Hawk. Opponent not in a good spot to attack, but we'll see they have plenty of cards in hand. Sphinx of Foresight, sure. It's a nice blocker for them. And unfortunately drawing all these lands isn't really great for us. Well, the problem is our opponent has plenty of sweepers in Jeskai colors. We've seen 1 Clarion from them. If they're going to run out lifelink and some blockers, then I think we'll see if we can go wide and see what happens.
If you are going to fight, fight beside me.
And we'll try to attack next turn. Getting the scry action, keeping on the top. It's not good for us. Looking at our Elspeth, so maybe a Banishing Light or something. Or just a Bone Crusher. Clarion, okay. Our opponent still has a long way to go. We're at 39. But obviously Jeskai has plenty of powerful removal spells, and this Dream Trawler can kind of take over games in and of itself. I'm not really sure I understood the Dream Trawler trying to attack there. Well, we can attack, but they have a Justice Strike or a Bone Crusher Giant, and that will kill our Archon. I don't think gaining the 4 life is quite worth it. We just have to kind of bide our time and wait for our opening. In the meantime, they're going to have plenty of scries with the Sphinx and even the activated Omen of the Sea. To open mana. So things quickly turn in on our opponent's favor. We're still a ways away from being able to escape Elspeth since we've escaped the Sentinel's eyes a couple of times. All we can do is just kind of try to go wide and keep looking for our openings. Okay, another Omen of the Sea. Or Sea Ordain, as some people call it. Top. Well, could just be game over at this point. If they're able to clear the board. And Jeskai just has too many powerful spells and just can take over the game. We are an aggressive deck, so when the game goes long, it's not really usually to our advantage. I think we'll just move on to a different opponent. Anytime you're not having fun, you know, Magic is a game of fun, just find something else. You can move on to the next opponent, you don't need to force yourself to play. Obviously, Jeskai is a super powerful deck. But they still need to play an unranked play, and that's how they choose to play Magic. So let's jump into another one here so we can get a more reasonable opponent. Up against the Nicodamus. And seems pretty reasonable. Go Healer's Hawk turn 1 and follow it up with 2 Loyal Pegasus turn 2. And if we don't draw land, we have another Pegasi to follow it up with. Perfect. Just get the most power on the board. We'll get these 2 Loyal Pegasus down next turn. Alright, our opponent looking like they're on Bant. Now we got 5 power on board. Our opponent finding with an untapped land. Trying to decide their next move. We have the Banishing Lights to remove any permanents that we don't like, and that's definitely something we don't like to see here. So on some kind of a Bant life gain, looks like. Just get that out of here and swing in for 5. And gain 1. Okay, all the life gain lands, and Impassioned Orator. Alright, just be mana efficient here. We'll get our Pegasus 3 drop down. Not too worried about the Orator just yet. In and of itself is just a 2/2. I need lots of creatures to really get value out of it. Combine Guild Mage. Not what I would expect to see in this kind of a matchup. double check. So they can move counters around from like their Johnny's Pride Knight, I guess. Otherwise, it doesn't really seem that impactful. We'll just keep adding to the board. And hold on to this Banishing Light. Okay, our opponent on 4 colors. Dawning Angel. They're going to gain life just from the Dawning Angel entering. 4 from it, plus the Impassioned Orator. It does have flying, so it can block any of our creatures. So if we Banishing Light, then we get in for 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, drop them down to 3. Or we can Archon now and then hold up the Banishing Light for next turn. I think getting them down to 3 is probably just the better play here. Pressure their life hold as much as possible. They'll likely be able to gain 1 or 2 life, but we'll see what they have. Right now they can't block any of our creatures. They'll need to block at least 3 of them. Actually 4 of them. And yeah, unable to find answers. So they're kind of a life gain deck, but kind of not. We did see 1 creature gain life when entered, and obviously the Impassioned Orator would also be shut down by Hushbringer. Don't seem to have too many big creatures we need to worry about with Pacifism, but maybe it might be worth it just for their flyers. I'm going to try these Unbreakable Formations and bring in 2 Pacifism. And just try it like that. And so we can kind of race our opponent a little bit better. Going from Banishing Light to Pacifism, just more efficient removal against their flyers. And Unbreakable Formation, just being able to buff up our creatures. And no lands, can't keep that. Okay, I think with the Birth of Meletis we'll keep, and we'll put planes to the bottom. I just hope we can curve out into our Archon. Probably lead with the Pegasus just to get a creature down. Perfect, draw land. Obviously, waiting to play the Birth of Meletis with an Archon of Sun's Grace in hand is not a bad play. Our opponent showing Daxos, so just looking more like a traditional mono-white life gain in this one. Not sure what that was all about. We'll just pass. I don't think it's worth getting in for 1 when our opponent can hit for 2 here. I think we're going to win on the backs of the Archon of Sun's Grace, so let's try to ride that train. Get as much value out of that as possible. Sky Theater Strix. I'm not really sure I see the synergy, but it makes sense to them, so that's all that matters. Yeah, our 1/3 doesn't do anything here against their 1-2. They just block and bounce off each other. We'll just wait until we can get a more advantageous attacks. So next turn we can Trusted Pegasus and Birth of Meletis, and then hold up Unbreakable Formation for the following turn. A Goblin Gather. Okay. Our opponent's deck is just kind of all over the place. Well, Daxos is pretty interesting here. Maybe we'll get our own Daxos down. And yeah, start crashing in with our Archon of Sun's Grace. If they want to block it, that's fine with me. Nope. Gain 3. Hit them for 3. And we still have the Birth of Meletis and Unbreakable Formation. So we're in a pretty good spot. Our opponent has 2 cards of their own. Okay, activating Combine Guild Mage. To give the Goblin tokens +1 counters. So they have a bunch of 2/2s down, so not terribly threatening really. And they don't have much in the way of flying creatures that can block. We do have a lot of life gain. I think we just want to start swinging in. Try and get these Birth of Meletis down, thin our deck, get some more value out of our Archon of Sun's Grace. And then the Unbreakable Formation can help us close things out here the next turn or two. Getting the 0/4 walls down will just make things pretty miserable for our opponent, since they're just looking at a bunch of 2-powered creatures on their side. They're going to attack all. I'm sure they have some kind of a combat trick. Can at least block with our own Daxos, since it has 8 toughness. It's going to be harder for them to deal with that. And even if we lose a bunch of life here, we've got a bunch of life gain on subsequent turns with the Birth of Meletis, all of our lifelink creatures. The Combine Guild Mage seems like it's going to put in the most work for them, so let's block there. After all that, they're down to 23. Or we're down to 23. Our opponent gained some life off Daxos. They're back to 20. Fencing Ace. Sure. Get a couple walls. So, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 14. So we're just short of lethal, I believe. I think we can attack all. Give Daxos flying, why not? We're going to gain a whole bunch of life. We have a Healer's Hawk and these 2 0/4 walls to chump block for us. And we can finish them off with Unbreakable Formation next turn. Opponent down to 7. We go to 37. Make that 38. And Daxos can gain them a little bit of life back, but I don't see how it's going to be enough. Wow. Resurgence. So they're going to hit for quite a bit. Step up a little bit with our walls. So we're down to 29. Oh, 28. Our opponent gets to swing in again. We don't need these walls anymore. Just let them soak up as much damage as possible. Alright, even though our opponent went super wide, they were not able to handle Pegasus Tribal. Okay, so just kind of a fun little deck. Not something I've seen around out there, and I hope you guys give it a try, something a little bit different. Thanks again for watching, and take care.